Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. We got our second video of MLB 20, and this one's going to be all about building your Diamond Dynasty lineup. Yesterday, we put out a video about Showdown and how to complete Showdown and why to complete Showdown. So make sure you actually check out that video before you watch this one, just because it kind of determines what kind of player you're going to be in order to get some of the cards I'm going to talk about here and kind of the path that you could take on your way to level Silver 40. Now, originally, I was just going to talk about your path to Silver 1, but you can actually go all the way to level 40 because you get the same pack at level Silver 40 that you get at level Bronze 80. And that pack is pretty cool. It's the one that's on the screen right now with some really good cards, and it's kind of a tough choice, but the fact that you only have to go to level Silver 40 instead of 80 is actually a big deal. So I wanted to include that in this path in case you're kind of unsure of who to take at 80. It's not the worst thing if you take maybe not the best card at the time. There are two that stand out here more than the rest, but we'll talk about that in a minute here. Now, this is my squad right now. We've got the Tatis. We managed to pull the Rendon, and we also bought the Matt Chapman. I will talk about some of the collections and stuff to do as well. This is kind of what I'm running with. Not everyone here is who I'd recommend. I think the Meadows and the Perez and even the Steve Finley are not great cards. Everyone else on this team is not bad. But for this video, I want to talk about setting your team to be stacked with all diamonds if possible. So even though there's a card like the 83 Olsen, which is actually really good, we're only going to be talking about trying to get to diamonds because golds are self-explanatory. You just kind of, buy them off the market. So not much to talk about there. We're kind of talking about the secondary level of your roster. One of the important things before we figure out what we want to get is kind of discussing a potential meta, and a little bit different from last year. The main difference in terms of attributes is that it looks like contact and vision are disconnected now. With those two rings of the PCI, you get the contact in the middle, you got the outer ring for the vision. And it feels like, to me, vision this year is just not going to matter, because if you have good contact, it won't shrink the good part of your PCI, which really matters, and striking out isn't a huge deal. Now that they're completely disconnected instead of one big buckshot with a bunch of randomness going on in the middle, there's a lot more finer points within the PCI, which really just relates to the contact and power that you have. So in previous years, we talked a lot about getting guys with good vision, and maybe it comes back down the road, but I think at this stage in the year, we're going to look a little bit more at contact power, defense, speed, stuff like that. Some things I think are more important than others. For instance, in the outfield, I really do like cards that have at least 70 fielding, a decent amount of speed. At this stage in the game, I'm okay with 60 speed. In center field, I want at least 80 speed, so that's why I don't really like the Finley out there. And then Austin Meadows, obviously a very poor defender, not someone that I want in my ranked lineup. I'd mess around with him in events, but not in ranked. So I kind of find 70 to be the breakpoint for a lot of these attributes. The only time I'm okay with something less than 70 is if some of the other attributes are really exceptional. So for instance, this Matt Chapman, he only got 60 contact. 60 contact I'm fine with, but usually power I want at least 70. But someone like maybe Whit Merrifield, who we might see a little bit later, he's got some spectacular stats other than his power. So I'm okay with it. He's got a glitchy swing. Those kind of things factor in as well. As a general rule of thumb, that's kind of where I start off from. But of course, Matt Chapman's superior defense, got a pretty good swing for me, got some decent power. Power plays higher than a 75. So I kind of like him as well. But he also factors into some collections, which we'll talk about in a sec. So you might see me go off of my rules from time to time, but that's the reason why I might make an exception. And you can see that I have a couple live series diamonds in here. I also have Jack Flaherty and obviously the three pitchers from the Braves as well. We got Kirby Yates. So we did buy a few diamonds here. There are times where I'm going to expect you to buy some cards, but it won't be completely ridiculous. And you'll see that along your path to Silver 1, you're going to be able to buy those cards easily without breaking the bank. I am team no money spent. As you see, we do have a lot of gold. We're not putting any money in the game, at least at this stage in the year. And it doesn't matter like if you play a lot, because getting to Silver 40, whether you take 2 months or 4 days, it's all the same. So the path to Silver 40, I'm not saying do this in a week, do this in 2 weeks, but we are kind of assuming we're doing it within the first program time, especially with the coronavirus and everything. Everybody's home. A lot of people are playing the game. So this is going to be useful for people who are playing the game a lot, but also people that are going to take a little bit of time to get there as well. I've got a spreadsheet coming up in a few minutes so that you guys can see everything that we're talking about. We will go through the XP path. I will talk about the individual cards that I think are the best, and then we'll talk about the paths that you can take at each pack. So for instance, the first 40 level pack or even the 10 level pack with the evolution cards, those are important pieces to start with. So we will talk about those not only for the individual cards themselves, but also your entire squad as a whole. Especially in the first season where we play on All-Star in like 75% of our games, if not more. These cards really won't matter if they have vision, so even if the meta does go back to vision eventually, it's not going to matter too much at the early stages, so it's going to be a win-win either way. Now let's start by looking at the XP reward path. You've got the Pudge, you got the Eckersley, you got the Eddie Matthews, and the Carlos Gonzalez. They're all very solid cards. I don't know if the Pudge is going to be too useful for a lot of people. You got really good defense, but I think with a couple of the catchers that are coming up, it's a solid card, but again, below 60 power, not really necessary at the time. This Eckersley is the one that I picked. Pretty good per 9s, throws a little bit slow, but as a diamond reliever, you know, it's going to be probably the best overall reliever that you can get at the moment. This card goes to stud, not a ton of speed in center field, so you might want to play in right field, but he will go down to silver fielding if you play him out of position, so it's kind of tough. Usually has a good swing, decent enough power, good contact, overall a really good card. And we'll come back to why this might be a more valuable card in a second. Finally, the Eddie Matthews, also silver fielding at third base. Got a lot of power, both righties and lefties. This is a very, very solid card. If you like his swing, might be the pick for you. So again, I took the Eckersley. I thought he was the best pick there, but there are a few there that you could go with. And again, we'll talk about which path to go here in a second after we see a few more of these. This is the pack that I just picked up. As you can see, I'm a level 42 bronze. I have not decided which card I'm going to take yet, because there's a few good ones in here, and I still have to decide. Maybe going to make a decision after this video, but we'll see. So we got the Mondesi card, an absolute glitch in previous years. We got the Morton with really good stamina because he was a starting pitcher, pitching out of the bullpen in the playoffs. Robles has good contact and defense. Gary Sanchez. Now this card, when they showed it in the dev stream, they talked about that you might not want to take this card because catcher defense matters more. But honestly, that feeling doesn't look too bad. I talked about 70 being the break point for a lot of attributes for me. He's got 70 in 4 out of the 5. Reaction doesn't matter a whole lot as a catcher. I more care about the blocking and even arm strength sometimes. Of course, that power is insane. Gary's always got a fantastic swing. Good contact against righties too. And then against lefties, you know, doesn't matter as much because you got that platoon advantage with the ball coming in across the plate. So I'm very much leaning towards this card. You know, the only thing holding me back is that Posey 99 at silver 1. So I still have some more thinking to do, but I think by the end of this video, I'll be able to figure out which path I want to take. I think when a lot of people saw this pack, Mondesi was the first guy that jumped out to them because he's a shortstop, and shortstops are generally thin, but that's not the case this year, and I'll show you again in a second. All that stuff it's all gonna come together in a few minutes here, but I think that's what people saw. I think the Reyes, I don't know if you want to take a starting pitcher out of this pack right now, because unless you're totally convinced that Reyes is your guy, I feel like taking a no-sell starting pitcher is really tough because then you're locked in. You only get to use him 1 out of every 5 games, and he's kind of the same overall as some guys that you can get pretty cheap on the market right now. That being said, he has good stuff, so if you want to take him, you know, it's probably worth it, but I feel like stuff doesn't matter on All-Star. When you get to Hall of Fame and Legends, sometimes the stuff matters a little bit more, but I feel like control matters way, way more on All-Star. Morton might be a good pick because he's a relief pitcher. Stamina is going to matter a ton this year, so this might be a really good card for a lot of people, and it might not be the worst pick. Robles, his contacts, it's pretty good. You know, his defense is great too, but the power is really low. I don't know if I want to take it out of the pack, which right now, when you're at the level 40 pack, you're almost kind of working for a middle of the order bat. You don't really care about the defense too much at this stage. Maybe when you get to like silver 100, it matters a little bit more. But right now, I think out of this pack, you want to take a middle of the order bat, and I think that's got to be Gary Sanchez. If you have to wait till gold 1 to get the Posey, I think Gary Sanchez can hold you over until that point. So it might be worth taking the Sanchez, forgetting about the rest, because he's going to play for a long, long time. And I think this Mondesi, if he had a little bit better defense, he might be more interesting to me, but I don't like silver defense. Out of a lock-in pack like this, I don't want a silver defense at short. All right, the next pack that we're going to look into, of course, you get the pre-order diamonds here, which might be helpful, but overall, these are only about 10K in the market right now. Might help you out if you're really struggling with stubs, but we're going to kind of pass over that for now. This is where it gets juicy. The 80 XP pack right here, we got the Kluber, which looks pretty nasty. We got the Ricky Henderson. We got the Hal Newhouser. We got the Willie McCovey and the Raleigh Fingers. Nobody in this pack is a bad card. I think Ricky Henderson is the worst out of all of them. If you're going to have a low power versus righties, you need to have a little bit more defense, in my opinion. This is not a middle of the order bat for me, and that's what I would have to take out of this pack. And then, of course, you get a first baseman here. He's going to be nasty at the plate. There's a lot of depth at first base. You can even have a gold at first base at this stage in the game. So I wouldn't really take this card. He seems to me like more of a mid-level pinch hitter card in a few months. So then we have the Hal Newhouser. In terms of starting pitchers, you got the Kluber and you get the Newhouser. One's a 98, one's a 99. You could go with this card if you like, but I think the top 2 cards in this pack are the Kluber. He's got the sinker cutter combo, which a lot of people love. And then the Raleigh Fingers, who's a relief pitcher. Decent stamina. Everything else is fantastic. Pitch selection, the cutter, fork, ball slider, 4-seam, so everything's there. Very similar to the Fingers that we had last year as well. So I think clearly the elite cards in this pack are Fingers and Kluber. Then it goes Newhouser, then probably McCovey, and then Ricky Henderson. If you want to swap Henderson and McCovey, I understand that as well. But at the beginning of the video, we talked about the fact that the silver 40 pack is the same as the bronze 80, which kind of makes it come up quicker. So if you take one of these guys, it really should be about who you need at the time, because I think the first 2 picks should be Fingers and Kluber, and you can kind of flip them because they're both very, very good. If you're in need of a closer, I would probably go Fingers. If you feel like you have 5 guys that you can run with in the starting rotation, I would go Kluber. Hitting is definitely the meta right now. I don't know if there's anyone that can overpower the hitting that's going on, so I don't know that these guys are going to be your problem solvers, but at the same time, there's no like amazing hitter in this pack that I would take over these guys, so it's got to be one of those 2. And finally, the silver 1 pack. We got the Larkin shortstop, we got the Reggie Jackson, we got the Ryan Sandberg, we got the Minnie Minoso, and we got the Buster Posey. Off the bat, the Buster Posey looks like the move because he's a catcher, but we also saw the Gary Sanchez, and we talked about why he might not be the early pick here. The Minoso is kind of low-key. He's going to have good speed, good defense, very good contact. They said that the perfect fly ball break point was 80 power, which is exactly what he has against righties, so he might not be a bad pick as well. He's kind of inflated by vision, but he plays also 4 positions, which might be useful for you. And I'm a White Sox fan, so I'm going to be a little bit biased towards him. I believe I have the same birthday as him as well. Sandberg was one of my favorite cards last year. Extremely glitchy. He's got good speed, fielding, power, everything you could want out of a card. A little bit low on the power, but he plays second base. He's going to be one of the top second basemen all year long. Because he's in this pack, I think we're going to see him a lot more than we did last year. And he was good last year. Even going to be better this year. Reggie Jackson, his fielding's a little low. Everything else is fantastic. I don't love his swing some years, but everything else is fantastic. If you wanted to take this card, if you need a middle of the lineup left-handed bat, I would take this card. I don't think it's a waste of a pick. Especially early in the year where maybe your fielders aren't as good anyway. Everything about his hitting is just fantastic. And then Barry Larkin, if he was a diamond fielder, I think this would be an easy pick for me. Power versus righty's a little bit low, but the contact's great. He's going to be glitchy as always. Very good speed. Like I said, if they have fantastic attributes otherwise, I'm okay with a below 70, 80 power. But the fact that he's only gold at shortstop kind of knocks him down a little bit because of how deep shortstop is as well. So I think any of these picks are good. And I will show you now that spreadsheet that I have going because I think it'll make it easier to see which positions are really deep, what kind of cards you can get from team affinity as well, which we haven't talked about. I'm just going to throw them up on screen on the Excel sheet rather than going through all of them. But those make a big difference too. And that's also why I brought up Showdown, because to get these team affinities, Showdown is definitely the fastest way to do it. And it's not easy for everybody. So if you're capable of doing some Showdown runs and getting those team affinity packs, I already got that Tatis that you saw earlier. It's gonna be a lot easier for you and a lot more options for you as well, because there are some very, very good cards in here. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet that we've got. Obviously, you can see all the different positions along the top. You can see the color code right here, XP pack, affinity reward, sellable rewards, collection rewards, and if you see a blank one right here, that's just a live series card. And this is the cap right here. So I haven't decided where I want to put it either, but that's kind of where you find the deficiency in your lineup. You can fill in the cap. The cap's not going to be endgame just like it was last year, but it is really good for the early season. Now, as you saw from my rotation, we had these 3 guys in there because you can buy them for 10K each. In the early season, 10K is not like super cheap, but at the same time, for a starting pitcher that probably their prices will go up slightly for a little while, maybe even out around 15, 20K. You know, when you get these upgrades and you can lock in some guys to your rotation, then it might be worth it to sell these guys. So you'll have a little extra stubbage to work with for maybe some of these collections. So out of the starting pitchers, these are the 3, the Snell, the Nola, and the Shohei that you can find in Team Affinity. And I think they're good cards. But again, I'm uncomfortable with locking in starting pitchers. I am going for the Shohei pretty much immediately because already he's a good bat. So that's kind of an advantage. I'm actually doing the March to October to get Shohei. So it's kind of an automatic thing. I'm just having some fun with it. I wanted to test out March to October so I could give some advice about whether or not it was worth it for Team Affinity. And that's just the card that we picked. So we're going to have the Shohei no matter what. The Snell and the Nola, if you're really good at Showdown, you might as well try it. But if you do plan on going for the Kluber or the Newhouser, even the Reyes, maybe not worth it. I also have that Flaherty, as you saw. I did lock him in. Flaherty and Chapman were the two lock-ins that I did, because now moving into the relief pitchers, you see the Isringhausen and the Doolittle. I think they're the two collection awards that are the most worth it. I can't remember. I think there's like a Piazza card, and there's like one other card that's like a 92. Those are the only cards that to me look like they're worth it, but they're not good bang for your buck. So I didn't put those on this screen because I think a lot of people are really thinking about doing no money spent when it comes to this. And you probably won't get to those cards unless you get a really nice pull. You probably won't get to it until after Silver 40, which is why I don't put them on the screen here. And as you can see, there are only 6 relief pitchers that I think are good for ranked seasons, at least diamond relief pitchers. These might be the only diamond relief pitchers that you can get right now for an affordable price, because you also have the Andrew Miller, the Hoffman. You got Hader's not too bad. I have the Kirby Yates and then the Aroldis Chapman. So the live series relief pitchers are not in a bad spot right now. In fact, they will probably go up in price if you want to buy them soon. So the Hader and the Chapman you might want to pick up. The Hoffman and the Miller are both BR cards, 12-0 cards, so they're going to be expensive for a while. And other than that, these are pretty much the only diamond relief pitchers. So I would go for those Isringhausen and Doolittle cards. Mariano's kind of trash on All-Star. I think he'll play a little bit better on the higher difficulties. We talked about the Eck, we talked about the Fingers, and we talked about the Morton. So if you want to fill out your bullpen pretty early, I do think you need at least 3 of these guys before you start ranked seasons. So take your pick. I believe the Cardinals and the Athletics collections only cost about 30K each only, but it is worth it to do those. It is worth it to get those relief pitchers. Pick up the Mariano along the way. We saw you get a free pack in there as well for the pre-order cards. You can probably pick up the Mariano for free or for about 10K on the market right now. Again, I'm not too great with the market, so I have no idea whether prices are going to shoot up or stay stagnant or drop. I'm just kind of talking about what's going on right now. Early on, things could change between now and Silver 40 if you're watching this video a couple weeks from now. But overall, at least the collection stuff should be about the same. By the way, we also get new headliners packs every 3 or 4 days, twice a week. So keep an eye out. There might be some nice cards coming out there as well. Now we get to the interesting stuff, the positional players. We have Gary, Pudge, and Posey. So there's also a 87 Posey for the Giants team affinity, which I don't think is very good. He's got like 50 power. I didn't put him on here. These are the 3 guys that I think are the best. Obviously, Pudge is going to be significantly lesser than the Gary and the Posey. And if you do take the Pudge, that means you can't take the Eck. Then we move on to first base. We talked about those cards. We didn't talk about those team affinity cards. Mancini's a right fielder, but he's got 40-something speed. Pretty okay defense this year. But I put him at first base because he does have the secondary there, and I think he's a good hitter. You got Carlos Santana, Rizzo, Olsen, all good picks. But at first base, you can even run with a gold in rank season, so I don't know if it's really worth it to go. So it's not really worth it to prioritize those guys at the moment, but we'll come back to that in a second. Ryan Sandberg is the far and away best pick at second base. Then we got Albies and Witt. But at shortstop, let's skip third base for a second. At shortstop, you have Glaber, Correa, and Tatis. All I think are fantastic picks at shortstop from the team affinities. I believe Correa and Tatis both have gold fielding at their primary, silver at their secondary. Glaber has silver at his primary, and then bronze at the secondary. But at second base, at this stage in the year, I would be okay with a bronze or silver at second base. So if you wanted, you could do one of those shortstops, maybe even 2 of the shortstops, put 1 at shortstop, 1 at second base. I think that might be the move as well if you don't want to waste your silver 1 on Ryan Sandberg. Then at third base, you have Matthews, Devers, Moncada, Seager. That's Kyle Seager from the Mariners, and Matt Chapman, who I already have. I'm going to be doing the White Sox team affinity no matter what, so I will be getting that Moncada card sometime in the next couple weeks. He may take over from Chapman, but Chapman's been playing pretty decent for me so far. If you do get that Doolittle, then you're going to have that Chapman no matter what, so you might as well throw him out there. Don't worry too much about third base for now. I think he can carry you all the way to Silver 40. And that's where that Mondesi that we talked about becomes a little bit less valuable with the Glaber and the Correa and Tatis. I think the Correa and Tatis, very similar cards to Mondesi, actually better attributes. Mondesi is just a little glitchy and a switch hitter with better speed, but actually worse defense than those guys. So he might not even be better than those guys. You don't want to necessarily waste your bronze 40 pick on that Mondesi. And I'm not convinced that the Larkin is a major upgrade over any of those other 3 guys. And not even over the Glaber, because I think his swing is improved from last year, and I think he's also a very, very good power hitter. So out of the shortstops, I would go for team affinity, and you'll see that in a second. There's some more stuff at the bottom of the screen that's hidden right now. But out of team affinity, if you are only able to do maybe 1 or 2 based on how much time you have, if you're planning on doing March to October rather than showdown, if you only have time for maybe a couple, I would definitely go for a shortstop out of team affinity no matter what. Then we got our outfield, starting with Minoso and Soto in left field. Outfield's kind of weird because center field, a lot of times you get 3 center fielders in the outfield. But let's see what we have to work with. So we got that Minoso we talked about. Now we got the affinity Soto. He's got like 70 fielding and 60 speed, which is not fantastic, but I think it's good enough because his hitting is actually really, really good. Always got a really good swing. And I've already seen that Soto in BR, and he's pretty nasty. Would I be comfortable with Soto going up to Silver 40? I think so. I think I would keep him all the way up there. I think his defense is good enough. I might not waste Minoso on that pick if I take that Soto. Now, center field, a lot of these are just defensive picks, right? We got the Buxton, Henderson, Robles, all basically defensive picks. Buxton's pretty glitchy despite only having 60s in the offensive categories. Fantastic center field defense. If you've already filled out your lineup and you just need like a defensive guy in center field, I'm okay with the Buxton. I'm okay with the Robles. Robles, you have to get a little bit early, so it's probably not going to be the pick for him. Buxton, you might be able to get later. Fill out the rest of your lineup first, and then it's okay. But if you're still working with golds in the middle of the lineup, or not sure what to do yet, I would probably wait on the Buxton. And I just realized I have the Torrey in the wrong spot. He's actually the Twins collection. He's an 86 overall, and he's only got 70-something speed. He's not the best option in center field either. Pretty good contact against lefties, decent power. Offensively, he's okay. Defensively, not so much. And I realized I had the Cargo in right field as well, but when you evolve his card, he becomes a center fielder. And again, we talked about why he might not be the best, but again, if you needed an offensive center fielder, that's what you would want to go with. So as you can see from these center fielders, there's no one that really stands out. But remember that there's cards like the Cargo means you can't take the Ek. The Robles you would have to take a little early, but also the least amount of work. The Buxton and the Torrey, you have to do a little bit of work. I'm not sure that there's a clear-cut winner here. I still like the Eckersley pick, but Cargo's pretty good. I might go with him. The Torrey collection is only like 20k. There's only golds that are in that collection. There's no diamonds. So if you want to do the Twins collection, I think that might be the way to go. Kind of gives you a balanced card that you can kind of work with for a little while. Might not be the best defensively, but kind of fits into that lineup without having to put the time in to do a team affinity to get a card that won't really hit too much. Or, you know, honestly, you could even do a creative player. Creative player might be a stud in center field. I don't really see the creative player fitting anywhere else right now, because I think you got a catcher. I think you got a second baseman somewhere there. Middle infield's pretty set with those shortstops. It seems like outfielders are kind of thin right now at the moment. Creative player in center field might be the move if you don't want to put him as a relief pitcher or something like that. I think it's also tough to burn a creative player as like a relief pitcher right now, because you don't necessarily know what meta you want to go with. If you want to kind of go with the break and the movement or the velocity. So I think you don't want to lock him in just yet. That's why I would stay away from the relief pitcher, and your creative player could be an outfield stud. Now in right field, you got Judge. He's a pre-order card. Out of those 3 cards, I think Judge is far away the best. The Griffey's like glitchy. I know a lot of people like the Griffey, but he can't really play center field. He's kind of in the same situation as Torrey. He's also a gold. These guys are all golds, but I think that Judge, because his vision and contact are so low, he's actually like masquerading as a gold, but he's actually more like a diamond. Silver fielding, a respectable in right field, good arm, and decent okay defense. If you wanted to run with that Judge for a little while, you could upgrade as well. I said we were only going to talk about diamonds, but Judge is the one exception to the rule in my opinion. Now you got your Reggie Jackson, of course, at the level 100. Again, the only knock on him is that bronze defense in right field. At silver 1, he could still be pretty good, to be honest. He might still be pretty good. And then, of course, you got Joey Gallo, the legend, who plays right field this year. I believe he played left field last year, started at third base or something like that a couple years ago. I've been moving around. This is a diamond, face of the franchise, Gallo. Again, doesn't have a good contact, doesn't have good vision, but he's got the incredibly good power. He's got very good defense, and he also plays first base. So Gallo's also one pick that I would definitely get. I mentioned you definitely want to get a shortstop out of Affinity, and I think you also definitely want to get the Gallo out of Affinity. On All-Star, the PCI, the contact doesn't matter too much. I think he's an easy pick with that good defense. So now the question is who to take and when. We kind of see like the tiers of how good these cards are along the way, where I think you can fit cards in. The second base and third base cards we kind of breezed over. Like the Albies is usually pretty glitchy. The Gold Wit is really glitchy every year, so I assume the Diamond's going to be really good, despite not having as much power as other cards. Second base probably doesn't matter as much. And then you can always take those shortstops, play them at second and third as well. Now let's talk about that path. If you take the Eck first, you could take the Gary, then you could take the Kluber or the Raleigh. My opinion, you take the Kluber first, just because if you took the Eck, that means you already took obviously a relief pitcher. You'll be a little bit deeper there, so you probably want to get a little bit more in your starting rotation. Then at XP level 100, I would go Sandberg or an outfielder. I might be changing this up a little bit on the fly. Let's think about it. So we said that we could take the shortstops. Right here, we talked the affinity. You could take the shortstops in Gallo. Your other picks would be the Posey, or you could also get the Larkin, the Minoso, the Reggie Jackson. If you're like me and going to be working on some of these affinities, you may not need the Minoso and Reggie Jackson. I would probably still go with the Ryan Sandberg here. So I think that's why I put it there in the first place. I think I knew what I was doing at that point. So probably this would be option number one. By the way, these options are not in any kind of order. I don't think one option is better than the other. A lot of you guys have already taken the XP level 10. So the reason why I have it like this is because if you took one of these paths, then you kind of have a path to work with. You've already kind of made a decision. So there are some options to go with from there. So if you've already taken that Pudge, you could go to the Mondesi. I also have Morton written in option number 3. Mondesi and Morton, you could kind of flip. You don't have the Eck, obviously. So you could go with Morton, but you will have Raleigh coming up in the 80 XP reward path. So you might want to just go with the Raleigh, take a shortstop to mess around with. You could also get those shortstops from Affinity, like I said before. Again, I don't really want to take that Mondesi, but it's an option for you. Let's see who else we could take for XP level 100. Ryan Sandberg again, I think, or outfield. You're going to be thin in the outfield there. You could end up taking one of those guys. It's kind of blank because no matter what you do when you take Pudge, you're going to be thin somewhere. I just don't know if Pudge is a good move at all. That's why I'm kind of confused by this one right here. Then the next option would be if you took Matthews. Then you could go Morton, Kluber, Posey. And then at level 140, you could again take that Raleigh. Pretty much at XP level 80 and XP level 140, you're always taking Kluber or Raleigh. It just depends on at that moment, what do you need more depth in? And finally, this might be the move. And I have option here for Cargo and Gary. These are kind of all the same. Like you can kind of mix and match here. Again, Kluber, Raleigh, Kluber, Raleigh. Well, the two options that you didn't take Gary, you already took the Pudge. This is where you want to take that Posey. If you take Matthews, then you're probably going to want to take Posey unless you take the Gary here. Got some options to mix and match. Really, again, comes down to who you really like, what kind of pitching situation you're in. If you don't like someone's pitch selection, you don't want to mess with them. But some of these are kind of more fluid. But this is option number 5 if you're not going to do any affinities, if you're not capable of it. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. I did a March to October last night. It took me about 3 hours to do half the season. And I did it on Hall of Fame / Legend. I did it on dynamic difficulty. So I got about 16 points from it. And looking to get about 50 to 60 points by the time I finish the season. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to play the regular season on Legend, then I might do the playoffs and Hall of Fame, possibly even All-Star. I don't know if that's something you can do. I can't remember if you can reduce your difficulty during the playoffs. If you can, then that's a possibility for me. For you guys that are trying to build your lineup to compete in Ranked, most of you guys are going to be totally fine on All-Star. Hall of Fame, you'll probably be okay too if you're a World Series player. So it's not really a problem there. The question is it worth it taking all that time? If you're really struggling with Showdown, if you have to do multiple attempts to get it done, it is worth going to March to October to pick up some of these affinity points. It's a fun mode. So like I'm going to do a bunch of them just for fun. That's all it comes down to. And you're pretty much guaranteed to get those affinity points. That's the difference, right? You can put in a little bit more time to March to October and be guaranteed those points. Showdown's like all or nothing, basically. If you don't win that final one, then you're done. March to October, you can have a couple bad at-bats. You can lose a couple games here and there. But overall, if you're playing at your average ability, you're going to get a minimum of 15 per half, probably 30 by the end of the season. So it's a little bit more of a guarantee for March to October. That's where the difference really comes down to how confident you are. If you've already watched my Showdown video and kind of learned like what the ins and outs of that mode are, then you might be okay. Definitely stick to Showdown if you can. The reason why I have it written this way on the screen is Affinity 1 and Affinity 2 is I think you should put in the time to do at least 2. As you can see, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of options for Affinity cards. I mean, these are all good cards. I think they're very usable cards. So it is worth doing it. But the longer it takes, the more other cards come out, more other programs come out. It won't be worth it like long term, but for short term, if you're trying to get into ranked seasons, it is super worth it to do the affinities, and I would highly recommend it. But if you're not going to do affinities, this is the option that I want you to go with. Cargo, Gary, Raleigh, Larkin, and I just changed my mind again because I realized again, Cargo is a center fielder. I had him in right field at first. Again, Raleigh or Kluber are the right answers for these two. There is a wrong and right answer. It should be Raleigh and Kluber. Which ones you take where, up to you, but it should be those two guys first. And then Gary, Larkin, Cargo, Raleigh. All these guys are who you want to take if you're not doing any affinities. Be strong up the middle, defensively, offensively. Get a nice little middle of the order there as well. A little bit of speed from Larkin, and then an ace that you can use in Kluber. I think at this stage, we talked about center field being a little bit thin. Created player could definitely work. You're going to have some cards like Adley Rutschman, Luis Robert, some other cards that you can find on the market. Even the live series cards at this point are probably good options as well, especially like a Bryce Harper in right field or something like that. In fact, let's go back. We got a lot of live series cards that are pretty good right now. These are all the really expensive one on the first page, but if you can grab someone like Mookie Betts, again, I don't think that power is too spectacular, but if you like that defense, plays a lot of positions, good contact, he's going to be good to go. This Acuna might be super worth it. Very balanced card. If vision is not a problem this year, he's going to be good. Center field, not the greatest defense, but pretty good speed to make up for it at this stage of the game. Unfortunately, he is a bronze at his secondary positions. This Judge is probably worth it. Possibly play center field with that good defense. He will be diamond with really good reaction time. But probably a right fielder. Rendon I have in my lineup right now. You got to play him at second base, which makes him a bronze, which is not great if you have that Matt Chapman like I talked about earlier. So there are a good few cards here. What I'm really interested is a center field because I felt like that was the weakest position at the moment. Of course, you got Trout. We talked about the Acuna. Ketel Marte might be a good move. Not great speed. He's probably better off at second base. Some of these guys are better offensively. I don't know what the answer is here. If you could get the Joe Adell for a little cheaper, I think this is the move. Solid goal defense, good speed, very good power for center field. It's going to be an expensive card, so like, I don't know if there's a right answer. Luis Robert might be an option as well. I will probably go with this Luis Robert because I'm a White Sox fan. I've been excited to use a card like this for a while. If there's one guy you want to put stubs into, I would probably go with the Joe Adell if you could. Otherwise, I'll be just saving up my stubs for this Luis Robert. So to finish off this video, I'm going to go back to my roster. I want to look at what position I want to work on right now. With this being my lineup at the moment, I definitely want to change out right field. Steve Finley, I do want to change out. I'll probably get that Robert, but he would be okay to start with as well. If I can throw him at the bottom of the lineup, I'm okay with the Judge in the outfield at the moment. Rendon, he's a glitch. He's got a great swing. Really good for me in March to October. I'll probably keep him in. We might mess around with some other dudes from Team Affinity at first base. I am getting that Gallo pretty soon, but obviously Salvador Perez, I just don't know. Other than maybe waiting for the 99 Posey, I feel like there's no other catcher that can hold me over till then. So I think that's why I'm going to go with the Gary. I think the Posey for a lot of people is a great pick. I don't think I want to do the Pudge. I think those are really the only three catchers that I want to mess with. I don't think JT Realmuto is really worth it for ranked seasons. So I think Gary's the move. I think the pack that I'm sitting on right now, Gary is going to be the move. I will probably wait for Posey until Silver 2. And I really think this is one of the best paths that you can go because I just don't know that there's an immediate fix at catcher right now unless you do a created player, which is totally worth it if you want to do that. But I think the Gary is going to be super good, and I think it might even be better than a created player. It gives me some options for center field as well. So now to go back to my desktop for a second here. I already took the Eck. I'm going to take the Gary. I will probably take the Kluber because I'm going to look at the bullpen right now. I've already got 4 diamonds in the bullpen. I think I'm probably going to invest in a couple of relief pitchers, live series like Chapman or something like that, because they're going for relatively cheap right now. I think their prices will skyrocket pretty soon. I'm not going to collect them, but I'm going to have them here. If they double in price, then I'll sell them in a little bit. But in the meantime, we're going to hang on to them for a second, and we'll figure out that starting pitcher situation soon too. I think I'm going to wait until I get Kluber to play ranked seasons, and then we'll go from there. But then at level 100, I don't know yet. I may go to a second baseman, but I might keep Rendon for a while. I will probably sell him if I can. Now, my option at second base could be Sandberg. I could remove Rendon, sell him. But I also mentioned that Mini Minoso. As a White Sox fan, I think I will take the Minoso. I don't recommend that as the #1 pick, but I do believe I will take that Minoso at level 100. I took the Silver 1 Frank last year as a homer pick as well. So I think I'm going to do it again. I think I'm going to go with the Minoso, throw him in left field, see what happens. I will have the Soto at that point too. So I don't know if I'm going to move some other guys around. I could even put the Minoso at third base. Who knows? We might move some guys around. But my recommendation for that pick is going to be Ryan Sandberg. If you're going to go Eck to Gary to Kluber, then I would also go with Ryan Sandberg here at level 100. I may take the Mini Minoso. Then you go with the Raleigh. Of course, you want to take a shortstop at Team Affinity and also Gallo if you can. I think he's going to be OP. You can also move him over to first base if your outfield starts to fill out. I do honestly think this is the best path to go, but honestly, it depends on if you took somebody else in this first round. And I think I'm going to be comfortable with Gary Sanchez until Posey I get at level gold 1. So those are my recommendations, guys. There's going to be way more paths to take after the first inning program is over. So keep an eye out. This will be fluid. But honestly, like, these are the cards that I think are worthwhile right now. So if you're just getting the game on the regular release, which will be basically a day from this video coming out, these are the cards that you want to look for. These are the cards that are the best in the game right now that you can use in ranked seasons. I would take the Eckersley to go to Gary immediately afterwards. I think that'll get you the best start, especially if you want to play ranked seasons as soon as possible. You can kind of fill out the rest of the lineup and everything with golds. But the purpose of this video was to make sure that with all the stuff that came out this year, with all the different opportunities, all the different decisions that you have to make, I wanted to make sure that you guys had a plan and not feeling too overwhelmed. I hope this video helped with that. I know it was kind of somewhat all over the place. We kind of went on little tangents, but hopefully that kind of brought it back home there at the end with some of the best paths to take. So if you like this video, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. I will be back with a lot more MLB The Show content. We're going to do some gameplay stuff coming up pretty soon. March to October for sure. Ranked seasons, once I get my team up a little bit, then we'll be good to go. We did a showdown video yesterday. Make sure to watch that. If you're still confused about how to grind out team affinities, make sure you watch that showdown video. And let me know if you'd like to see any other kind of content from this channel in the comments below. I will see you guys later.